There's a sound I still hear every single night in my sleep. Crunching metal, shattering glass, the sharp, violent explosion of an airbag slamming into my chest as my body whipped against a seatbelt. Every bone in my ribs screaming in agony. I was dying in that rain-soaked wreck, alone and broken behind a crumpled car windshield. And when the paramedics pulled out my phone to call for help, the people who were supposed to love me most chose my brother's petty inconvenience over my life. When my mother answered that emergency call, she didn't ask where I was. She didn't beg for me to be saved. She didn't even wonder if I was scared, bleeding, or in unbearable pain. All she asked was one cold, calculating question: is Nicole dying? And the second she heard I was critical but stable, still hanging between life and death, she sighed with relief and said the words that shattered every last piece of my childhood. Then it can wait. Caleb's car got towed. He needs $500. In that 30-second phone call, I stopped being her daughter. I became an afterthought, a backup plan, a wallet with a pulse. And today, I'm telling the full, unfiltered story of how I spent my entire life carrying my selfish family, how they stole from me, gaslit me, and abandoned me in my darkest hour, and how I finally took my life back from the people who were supposed to protect me. I don't remember the searing pain of my broken ribs half as vividly as I remember the sterile white ceiling of that ambulance, the flickering overhead lights, the stacked metal medical drawers, the relentless hammer of rain pounding the roof like loose change, clattering against metal. Every tiny detail is burned into my memory. As the paramedic held my phone to his ear, speaking in urgent, gentle tones to my mother, I lay there gasping for air, every breath a fiery stab through my chest, fully conscious of how close I was to losing everything. I had a husband who loved me more than anything, a tiny daughter waiting at home for her mom, a career I'd built from the ground up through blood, sweat and endless late nights. But to my family, none of it mattered. Not my life, not my pain, not the decades of sacrifice I'd poured into fixing every single one of their mistakes. For as long as I can remember, I was the perfect daughter, the golden child everyone admired from the outside. At every church dinner, every neighborhood gathering, every family event, people would whisper about me like I was proof my parents had done everything right. I was Nicole Harper, 42 years old, a meticulous legal audit specialist with a flawless reputation, a devoted husband, a beautiful young daughter, and a quiet, perfect suburban home. I wore crisp black blazers to work, kept emergency snacks stashed in my purse for my little girl, and never failed to send my mother flowers for Mother's Day, even when she ignored me all year long, even when she never said thank you, even when she only ever saw me as a tool to use. On the surface, my life looked untouched, polished, and effortless. But that was the secret I'd mastered for decades. I knew how to look put together, how to smile through the pressure, how to carry an entire family's failures on my back, while never letting anyone see the cracks. My mother loved to gush to everyone about how responsible I was, how reliable, how mature beyond my years. But that word, responsible, was never a compliment to her. It was a job description, a non-negotiable duty I was born to fulfill. My father was even crueler with his favorite phrase, one he'd repeat like a mantra every time trouble arose: family steps up. He said it every time my 39-year-old brother Caleb fell behind on rent. He said it every time Caleb quit another job in a childish fit, because his manager didn't respect his vision. He said it every time a bill went unpaid, every time a car payment bounced, every time Caleb cooked up some new half-baked dream that just needed a little extra cash to get off the ground. In my parents' house, Caleb was always the gifted, misunderstood golden boy, a grown man coddled and excused for every failure. I was the fixer, the planner, the one who understood spreadsheets and due dates and late fees and quiet, crippling panic. I was the one who paid for every single one of their mistakes. Not always because I wanted to, but because saying no felt like erasing myself from the only family I'd ever known. It felt like tearing apart the perfect family photo they'd spent years curating for the public, and I was too scared to be the broken piece that ruined it all. My husband Daniel saw the truth long before I did. He was a calm, gentle high school teacher, the kind of man who graded student essays at the kitchen table, while our daughter, Lily, slept curled up on his shoulder. He'd watch me stare at yet another frantic payment request from my parents or my brother, watch my shoulders tense with exhaustion, and whisper softly, "Nick, they don't call to hear your voice. They only call to open your wallet." I'd get defensive and angry every time he said it. Not because he was wrong, but because he was painfully, undeniably right. I hated that he could see the exploitation I'd spent my whole life refusing to acknowledge. The rot in my family ran far deeper than I ever realized, and it all came to a head 3 years before my accident. On Thanksgiving Day, for our wedding anniversary, Daniel had gifted me a delicate, stunning diamond bracelet. The first expensive, beautiful thing I'd ever let myself keep for me. No gifts for my mom. No loans for Caleb. No emergency payments for my dad's silly expenses. Just something tiny and precious that was entirely mine. I took it off by my parents' kitchen sink while we cleaned up after dinner, and by the time dessert was over, it was gone. My mother immediately blamed me, calling me careless and irresponsible. My brother Caleb refused to meet my eyes, his face guilty and shadowed, and me, I apologized. I begged for their forgiveness for losing the bracelet that meant so much to me, just to keep the peace in the perfect family facade. That's how deep the abuse went. I was so conditioned to take the blame for their mistakes that I apologized for being robbed by my own brother. Back then, I had no idea that stolen bracelet would become the final proof of everything they'd ever taken from me, and the symbol of everything I'd get back. The night of my car accident started like any other exhausting weekday. I stayed late at the office because numbers don't care how tired you are. Don't care how many nights you've gone without sleep. Don't care that you've spent your whole adult life fixing other people's messes. A contractor's payment trail wasn't adding up, and I refused to leave until I'd sorted every last discrepancy. I sat at my desk with cold, stale coffee beside my keyboard, clicking through endless bills and transfers while the cleaning crew vacuumed the hallway outside my window. Outside, the city was blurred by relentless rain, streaks of red brake lights gliding across wet, glossy pavement. By the time I finally shut my laptop, my shoulders felt like they were carved from stone, heavy with years of unrelenting stress and responsibility. I texted Daniel a quick note. "Leaving now, kiss Lily for me if she's asleep." He sent back a simple red heart emoji, the last normal, peaceful thing I would ever see before my world shattered completely. The office parking garage was nearly empty, my high heels clicking far too loudly against the hollow concrete floors. The air reeked of motor oil, rainwater, and old rubber, a damp heavy smell that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. I slipped into my car, tossed my blazer onto the passenger seat, and sat for a long bit with both hands resting on the wheel, letting the car heater blow warm air over my frozen fingers. I was only 12 minutes from home. 12 minutes from Daniel's gentle smile and the sweatpants he left folded on our kitchen chair. 12 minutes from Lily's pink glowing nightlight peeking out under her bedroom door. 12 minutes from safety and love and the only real family I'd ever had. The traffic light turned green. I checked left, checked right, inched forward carefully, and then headlights crashed into me sideways. They weren't fast like a movie crash. They were fast like an unyielding wall. Sudden, brutal, impossible to stop. Then came that sound I still hear in my nightmares. Metal folding in on itself, glass bursting into a million shards, the airbag exploding hard against my chest. My body snapped forward and back against the seatbelt, a sharp brutal jolt that cracked my ribs instantly. For one blinding, all-consuming second, pure unfiltered pain swallowed every single thought in my head. When I opened my eyes, cold rain was pouring through my shattered car window, tiny icy droplets stinging my face. I couldn't draw a full breath, every inhale sending a scorching fire through my chest and ribs. I tried to shift my body, and the pain flared so hot I almost blacked out again. A stranger shouted from outside the wreck, begging me to stay still. Then the siren started, loud, blaring, unrelenting, followed by hands on my body, muffled voices, and a plastic oxygen mask pressed over my mouth and nose. Nicole, can you hear me? The paramedic asked urgently. All I wanted to say was call my husband Daniel. Please, get my husband. But my lips wouldn't form the words. All that came out was a broken, garbled whisper. The paramedic fumbled through my phone contacts, trying to reach someone who could come for me. But Daniel was home exhausted from a long school field trip day. His phone on silent while he slept beside our daughter. He didn't see the calls. So the paramedics moved to my old emergency contacts. The ones I'd never updated. The ones I'd foolishly trusted my whole life. My parents. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before clicking open. My mother's voice came through the speaker sharp, irritated, and annoyed, like we'd interrupted her favorite television show. No warmth, no concern, no panic, just frustration. The paramedic rushed to explain the situation. I'd been in a severe car accident. I had critical chest trauma, and they were rushing me to the hospital in unstable condition. There was a long, heavy pause on the line, and then came the question that broke me forever. Is Nicole dying? She asked, flat and unemotional. No, where? No, how bad? No, is she scared? No, do we need to rush? Just a code calculation. The paramedic hesitated, then answered honestly. She's critical but stable. Stable enough to not be dying in that moment. Stable enough for my mother to abandon me. I can still hear the quiet, relieved sigh she let out over the phone. Then she said it. The words that echo in my head every day. Then it can wait. Caleb's car got towed. He needs $500. As the ambulance sirens wailed overhead, as I lay broken and bleeding and fighting for every breath, my own mother prioritized my brother's $500 towing fee over my life. And in that moment, deep inside me, something very old, very vital, completely died. I stopped bleeding for them. I stopped caring about making them proud. I stopped trying to earn a love that was never there. By the time the paramedics rolled my gurney into the hospital ICU, I already knew my body was broken. Fractured ribs, severe chest trauma, countless bruises, but I also knew something far worse. The crash had broken my body, but that phone call had broken my soul. My blood pressure spiked dangerously the second the ICU doors slid open. My body reacting to the betrayal my mind was still processing. I don't remember the monitor numbers, the nurse's words, or the doctor's updates, but I remember every sound of my family's arrival 3 long hours later. I remember the squeak of my father's expensive leather shoes on the polished hospital floor. I remember the click of my mother's fancy bracelets as she adjusted her purse, more concerned with her appearance than her dying daughter. I remember my brother Caleb's loud, huffy breathing, like being in a hospital waiting room for me was a personal inconvenience, a burden he shouldn't have to bear. They were 3 hours late. 3 hours too late to show any genuine concern. 3 hours too late to pretend they cared about me at all. But Daniel, my Daniel had been there for almost 2 hours already. He'd run straight from our house in the pouring rain, his shirt inside out, his hair soaked and matted to his forehead, his eyes swollen and red from crying so hard he could barely speak. He stumbled to my bedside, pressed his forehead gently to my hand, and whispered over and over again, "I'm so sorry, Nick, I'm so sorry." I wanted to tell him he had nothing to apologize for, that none of this was his fault, but the breathing tube in my nose made every word feel like shards of broken glass cutting my throat open. Sitting beside him was Marianne Cole, my mentor, the woman who'd taught me everything I knew about forensic auditing. She had silver hair, calm, wise eyes, and a reputation so respected that powerful men automatically lowered their voices in her presence. She'd known me since my first year on the job, and she was also the chair of the upcoming ethics gala, where I was supposed to receive a major career award that weekend. Daniel had called her the second he got to the hospital, because he knew my parents better than I did. He knew they'd show up ready to twist the truth, ready to gaslight me, ready to paint themselves as perfect victims the second they walked through the door. My father stopped at the foot of my bed for half a second. I hoped, stupidly, that he'd see the bandages, the bruising, the monitor wires tracking my failing vitals. I hoped he'd see his broken, injured daughter lying helpless in a hospital bed, but he didn't look at me at all. His eyes locked straight on Marianne, and his face twisted with rage and embarrassment. "What is she doing here?" he snapped, his voice sharp and loud enough to freeze the entire room. Marianne stood slowly, calm and unshaken by his outburst. My mother's painted lips tightened into a thin, fake smile. Caleb's eyes darted down to his phone, pretending to be occupied. "This is a private family matter," my father barked, pointing at Marianne like she was a trespasser intruding on our perfect family image. Daniel stood up then, his voice low, steady, and furious. "Nicole almost died tonight." My father didn't even glance my way, he just snarled, "Stay out of this." That's when I finally understood everything. He wasn't angry because I'd been hurt. He wasn't scared because he'd nearly lost his daughter. He was furious because Marianne, someone important, someone respected, someone who mattered, had seen their true colors. Their perfect mask had slipped in front of a witness who wouldn't be fooled. Their lies were no longer private. My mother stepped closer to my bed, plastering a fake, soothing smile on her face. "Well," she said brightly, "you look better than the paramedic made it sound." Caleb muttered under his breath, complaining about how terrible the towing lot was, how much hassle he'd been through because of his car. Then he lifted his hand to scratch his neck, and his jacket sleeve slid back. And that's when I saw it. The diamond bracelet. The one Daniel had gifted me for our anniversary. The one I'd apologized for losing 3 years prior. The one my brother had stolen from me. It was glinting bright on his wrist, like it had always belonged to him, like I'd never spent years grieving its loss. My heart monitor immediately started beeping faster, spiking with my racing pulse. For the first time in my life, no one in that room could call my reaction dramatic or attention-seeking. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew the truth. Dr. Alvarez stepped forward immediately, positioning himself between my furious family and my hospital bed. He told them they were upsetting a critical patient, and that security would escort them out if they refused to leave. My mother gasped like she'd been slapped. My father sputtered with indignation. Caleb quickly tucked his wrist behind his back, suddenly hyper, focused on the floor like he'd never seen the bracelet before. They stormed out of the room in a cloud of expensive perfume and wounded pride, muttering about being wronged and disrespected. The second the door clicked shut, I turned my weak eyes to Daniel and whispered hoarsely, "My bracelet. I saw it." Daniel nodded slowly, his jaw tight with anger and sorrow. "I saw it too," he said. Marianne spoke next, her voice quiet but firm. "I saw all of it." That single sentence changed everything. My family's power had always lived in private moments. Quiet kitchen conversations after Thanksgiving, hushed hallway talks after church, late-night phone calls where my mother cried just enough to make me send her money. They could always deny their cruelty because no one else was there to witness it. But this time, someone important had seen every last lie, every last theft, every last betrayal. The next morning, Daniel showed up at my hospital bed, with my laptop, determined to help me build my case. My hands shook too badly to type, so he entered my password for me. I was still on heavy pain medication, every breath pulling sharply at my fractured ribs, but the part of me that had spent decades cleaning up my family's messes was wide awake and relentless. We started compiling proof, piece by piece, no emotion, no bias, just cold, hard facts. We documented the exact timeline of the emergency call, the exact second my parents answered, the 3 hours it took them to show up at the hospital. We saved Dr. Alvarez's official medical notes detailing how their agitation had worsened my critical condition. We logged Daniel's arrival time, Marianne's arrival time, every detail that proved who'd actually cared about me in my darkest hour. Then we opened my bank accounts. The numbers stared back at me like tiny, silent graves. $1,400 every single month for Caleb's fake business loan. Extra cash for his rent. His car repairs. His endless emergencies. That always popped up right before my parents posted fancy family dinner photos on social media. Over the years, I'd given them more than $160,000. My hard-earned savings, my career earnings, my future security, all to prop up my grown brother's failures and my parents' toxic delusions of perfection. By lunchtime, Daniel had a folder so thick the clasp could barely close. By dinner, Marianne had connected me with Mr. Bennett, a no-nonsense civil attorney who specialized in family exploitation cases. He gave me strict, life-changing instructions. Do not confront them alone. Do not post anything online. Do not threaten them. Preserve every single piece of evidence. Change all your emergency contacts. Restrict their hospital visitor access. Let the records tell the truth for you. I followed every word. I made Daniel my sole medical contact. I removed my parents from all visitor and emergency access lists, blocking them from any updates on my health. I saved every single one of my mother's unanswered texts, every guilt-tripping voicemail, every manipulative message, forwarding them all directly to my attorney. Just when I thought I'd uncovered the worst of their betrayal, my coworker Angela called me, her voice trembling with shock and pity. "Nicole," she said, "your mother contacted HR. She claimed she has legal authority over your affairs. She's trying to get your medical leave canceled. She said your family depends on your income and you can't afford to be out sick." I laughed once, a sharp broken sound that made my ribs ache. Then I cried. Not from physical pain, but from pure, unshakable clarity. They'd left me die in a hospital bed, abandoned me for a $500 towing fee. And now they were trying to force me back to work before I could even walk to the bathroom on my own. They didn't care if I lived or died. They only cared about my paycheck. That night, Mr. Bennett called with one final, horrifying secret that broke what little was left of my trust in my family. "There's an insurance policy," he told me quietly, "one you never authorized. Your signatures forged. Caleb is listed as the sole beneficiary. If you die in an accident." The entire hospital room went silent. They hadn't just neglected me. They'd profited off my potential death. They'd prepared to cash out if my car crash had killed me. A week later, I walked into the ethics gala to accept my career award. The ballroom smelled like roses, fresh coffee, and expensive designer perfume. White linen tablecloths covered every table, crystal glasses glinting under sparkling chandelier lights. A jazz trio played soft, polite music in the corner, masking the tension hanging thick in the air. Everyone in that room expected a heartfelt speech about family support, gratitude, and humble success. They expected me to praise my perfect parents and my talented brother. They had no idea what I was about to do. Daniel walked beside me, steadying my elbow as I moved slowly with a cane, every step sending a sharp twinge through my broken ribs. I kept my face calm and composed, just like my parents had taught me my whole life. Smile while it hurts. Stand straight while they take everything from you. Never let the room see your blood. My parents sat front and center, dressed to impress. My mother's silver dress glittered under the lights. My father slouched back in his navy suit like he owned the entire venue. Caleb sat beside them, sipping a drink, wearing the cocky grin of a man who'd never faced a single consequence for his endless mistakes. My mother leaned into air, kissed my cheek, whispering sharply, "Remember to thank your father and me. People love a good family story." My father hissed, "Do not embarrass us tonight." Caleb lifted his glass, the stolen diamond bracelet, flashing bright on his wrist, and smirked. "Maybe you can introduce me to some investors after your speech." I stared directly at the bracelet on his wrist, then at my brother, and spoke quietly, firmly, "Stay for the whole thing." His grin faded instantly. That was the last time he looked comfortable for the rest of the night. When my name was called, Daniel helped me step onto the stage. The room fell completely silent as I stood at the podium, Marianne watching me proudly from the side. I accepted my award with both hands, because one was shaking uncontrollably. Overcome with nerves and rage and relief, I began my speech slow and steady, my voice clear and unwavering. I built my entire career around one simple belief. I said, records tell the truth, even when people refuse to. The crowd smiled politely. My parents smiled too, oblivious to what was coming. Then I clicked the remote, and the presentation screen shifted. No family photos, no warm gratitude slides, just a cold, clean, unflinching timeline of every betrayal. Last Tuesday night, I said, I was in a catastrophic car accident. My husband was unreachable in the moments after the crash, so emergency services called my parents. The first question my mother asked the paramedic was not which hospital I was being taken to. It was not whether I was conscious or scared, it was whether I was dying. The entire room went still, every guest frozen in their seat. I clicked again, and the official emergency call recording played over the venue speakers. Fully attorney approved, fully public, stripped of all private details except the truth. Everyone heard the paramedic's urgent report. Everyone heard my mother's cold question. Is Nicole dying? Everyone heard the confirmation that I was critical but stable. And everyone heard the words that broke me. Then it can wait. Caleb's car got towed. He needs $500. 300 people sat in dead silence. You could hear ice melting in cocktail glasses. My mother's face drained of all color. My father slammed his chair back, roaring, "This is disgusting. You're humiliating your own family." I looked him dead in the eye and answered, calm and unbreakable, "Number, I'm correcting the record." I clicked again, pulling up my official medical records. Chest trauma, acute respiratory distress, documented patient agitation caused by my family's hostile behavior. Next came the unforgiving timeline of who'd actually cared for me. Daniel arrived in under an hour. My mentor Marianne arrived shortly after. My parents and brother showed up 3 hours late, with no concern for my safety. When they finally arrived, I told the silent crowd, my father did not ask if I was safe. He screamed because my mentor had witnessed their true selves. He screamed because their perfect mask had fallen. My mother immediately burst into soft, performative tears. The same fake crying she used at church fundraisers to gain sympathy. She's confused. She lied to the crowd. She's medicated and delirious. I clicked again, cutting her off with irrefutable proof. Screenshots of my mother's social media posts, time-stamped and dated, posts where she claimed she'd dropped everything to care for me, where she praised Caleb as a gifted, misunderstood genius, where she painted me as a fragile, ungrateful child. Then came the financial records, months and years of cumulative payments, totaling over $160,000 drained from my accounts to fund my brother's lazy, unfulfilled dreams. No vague accusations, no emotional rants, just facts, just proof of how my entire life had been put on hold, how my safety had been overlooked, all for my brother's smallest inconveniences. Finally, I pulled up the forged insurance policy documents, exposing the truth that they'd planned to profit from my death. The entire room exhaled in collective shock. I finished my speech loud and clear, for everyone to hear. All future contact regarding me will go through my attorney. My parents no longer have access to my medical records. They no longer have access to my money. And they no longer have access to my silence. Caleb shot to his feet so fast his drink spilled across the table. He seized it. "You're ungrateful." He tried to storm the stage, but venue security stepped in instantly, calm and professional, stopping him before he could take another step. For the first time in his life, he had no audience to manipulate, no family to bail him out, no one to coddle his tantrums. My father grabbed my mother's arm to drag her away, but she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at every phone in the room, every tiny red recording light capturing her shame forever. For once, she couldn't edit the story. She couldn't twist the truth. She couldn't rewrite reality to make herself the victim. The fallout didn't hit like a thunderstorm. It came in quiet, irreversible losses for my toxic family. Our church removed my parents from every community leadership role they'd used to build their perfect reputation. Friends who'd believed my mother's lies reached out to apologize for misunderstanding me. My attorney sent official legal notices cutting all mandatory contact, forcing every future interaction to go through his office. 2 months later, my parents put their suburban house up for sale. Not because I'd taken anything from them, but because I'd finally stopped paying to sustain their lies. Caleb lost a major job opportunity after the gala video went viral. Employers finally seeing his true entitled, ungrateful nature. My mother called that cruelty. I called it accountability. A few weeks after the gala, Mr. Bennett recovered my stolen diamond bracelet. Daniel set the tiny jewelry box on our kitchen table, and I stared at it for a long time. Once, this bracelet had made me feel careless, guilty and small. The daughter who lost precious things and apologized for existing. Now it meant something entirely new. It meant stolen things can come home. Lost pieces of yourself can be recovered. You can take back what's yours from the people who stole your life. I didn't put the bracelet on that day. Instead, I set it beside a new family photo. Daniel, Lily, and me, standing on a windy beach. Our hair wild, all of us laughing freely. No masks, no pressure, no sacrifice required. Lily touched the frame softly and asked, "Are Grandma and Uncle Caleb coming back?" I pulled her tight into my arms and answered firmly, "No, baby. They're not." That night, my phone stayed silent. No frantic demands for money. No guilt, tripping voicemails. No fake emergency excuses. No manipulative texts wrapped in the word family. All I heard was Daniel washing dishes in the kitchen, Lily humming softly upstairs, and rain tapping gently against our window. For the first time in my entire life, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like safety. It felt like freedom. This story isn't just about a toxic family or a stolen bracelet. It's about every person who's ever had to fight to protect themselves from the people who are supposed to love and protect them. It's about the quiet, lifelong abuse of being the responsible one. The fixer, the wallet, the endless caregiver who never gets cared for in return. It's about how saying one simple word, no, can give you your entire life back. If you've ever sacrificed your happiness, your money, your safety, or your peace for family members who never appreciated you, never reciprocated, and only took and took and took, please tell me your story down in the comments below. You are not alone in this pain. Your exhaustion is valid. Your choice to protect yourself is not cruel. It's necessary. If this story hit close to home, if you felt every ounce of my pain and relief, do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on all notification bells so you never miss a raw, unfiltered true story about healing, boundaries, and taking back your life. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxic family and choose yourself first.